And now, stepping onto the path of ascension, we've made a U-turn. Now we're turning back home. We're facing the great central sun, and we're beginning the walk back to our source. And we've got to walk through and clean up all that karma that we made. So it will be challenging from time to time. It will be arduous. It requires work. And the whole rest of the world, when they're experiencing their stuff, facing what appears to be lesser challenges, is because they haven't turned around yet to face their stuff. They're still walking away from the source. So life will be very different for those of us on the path. It'll be very different. Yep. But then when you reflect upon who you really are, you can handle it. You can master all of it because you're bigger than all of it. And other people of lesser awareness will fail to remind you of that fact. They will continue to remind you of what they believe in a much more limited perspective.
Still hurts when it's people you love.
I know. Bless them, forgive them, continue to love them. That's all we can do.
I think right now, with everything I'm going through on my own personal life, I asked Michael, or didn't even ask, but just I'm processing through my stuff and it's really heavy and it's hard. And so Michael has insight as to why it's the way it is right now in this moment for me. So, Michael.
So there's two things I'll touch upon. And the first thing is, we originated as spiritual beings in the source of all that is, and the masters call that the great central sun. And we left the great central sun millions of years ago, and I mean way back in the tens and possibly the hundreds of millions of years ago, on a journey into the material world. And we've gone through many worlds, many dimensions, many planets. And throughout that journey, we've been walking away from source. And when we step on the path of ascension, we're doing a U-turn. We're coming home now. And so we're facing the great central sun, and we're facing all the karma that we've created. And we have to clean it up. It's nobody else's job. It's our job. We made it. We got to clean it up. And so it will be challenging at times. It will be arduous. There's work to do. But the thing to not lose sight of is the fact that we are bigger than this. We are able to handle this. And the masters have designed the path of ascension in such a way that we'll never get more than we can handle. And we'll get what is appropriate to every moment on the journey that will facilitate our spiritual growth and our spiritual evolution. And we must not lose sight of the fact that the world around us doesn't have this awareness. And they are still walking away from the great central sun. They're walking away from source. They haven't turned around to make the journey home. So their life at times will appear to be less challenging. And many times it will be less challenging. It's because they're not yet turning and facing their karma. And in their limited understanding, they have no conception of who they are or of who you are, and they will continue to reinforce in their experiences with you all the limited concepts that they believe are the truth. And that will often be a negative experience. It will be them criticizing, condemning, judging, having opinions that are speaking to the lower self. They're not speaking to the higher self. They're not speaking to the divine being that you are. And they're not speaking from the divine being that they are, because they exist in a much lower level of consciousness, a much more limited level of consciousness. That's all they're capable of speaking from and speaking to. And so the best thing we can do for them and for us is bless them, forgive them, love them, continue to express and radiate the kindness in our heart, and just not allow those limited concepts to dominate our consciousness. The other thing at this time of the year is that the planetary karma is at its most intense. And this is based on the science of the cosmic clock. And the final 6 weeks of the year are an increased karmic burden on a planetary scale. And so the masters highly recommend that we increase our invocations to the sacred fire and we increase the expansion of the light at this time of the year in order to deal with that karmic burden. And so we generally use more violet flame at this time of the year because St. Germain has said is during these 6 weeks that actually determines what we'll be able to manifest in the coming year for the entire year. Same is true of our birthday. The final 6 weeks leading up to our birthday, we have a greater karmic burden, and we want to transmute as much as possible because it will determine what we can manifest in that year of our life. So being recently encountering this teaching and recently making life changes that put you moving forward on the path, this is a more challenging time of year to do that. But you are fully capable. You are up for this. You're one of the players on the field at this time because you're appropriate to this challenge. Don't ever forget it.
Yeah. So the human part of me says I can't deal with this and I'm not strong enough and goes into the victim. And then the higher part of me says you have exactly what it takes and you can. And so I have that dialogue, and yet I felt it's particularly helpful potentially for somebody that's watching this in the bonus that I'll share this message as, just to say there's a reason that it's harder to walk a spiritual path in this material world, but it's worth it.